Alright, let's get real about something that too many people face in the dark. All alone. We're talking about addiction and the gut-wrenching experience of relapse. You may have poured your heart and soul into getting clean. You felt the hope. You saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and you believed you had finally conquered that demon. Then, out of nowhere, you find yourself right back where you started, feeling a level of disappointment that is hard to put into words. This isn't just a minor setback, it feels like a total failure, a sign that you're not strong enough or that you're doomed to repeat this pattern forever. It's time to turn the lights on and look at this thing for what it is. First thing you need to hear is this: relapse is not a moral failing. Let me say that again. Relapsing does not make you a bad person, a weak person, or a lost cause. It is a common, and I mean incredibly common, part of the recovery process for millions of people. Addiction is a chronic disease, much like diabetes or heart disease. It rewires your brain, changes your chemistry, and creates deep-seated patterns of behavior that don't just vanish overnight. Expecting a perfectly straight line from addiction to lifelong sobriety is like expecting to learn a new language without ever making a single mistake. It's just not realistic, and holding yourself to that impossible standard is a recipe for shame and despair. This is not the end of your story, it's a plot twist. So, the purpose of our conversation today is to drag this topic out into the open. You are not alone in this fight, and it is a fight you absolutely can win. Let's get to work. Section 2. What is the relapse cycle? Let's break it down. To beat this thing, you have to understand your opponent. The relapse cycle isn't some mysterious force, it's a predictable pattern with distinct stages. Knowing these stages is your first line of defense, because it lets you see the train coming down the tracks before it hits you. Here are the stages: emotional relapse, mental relapse, physical relapse, guilt and shame. The cycle often begins long before you pick up a substance. It starts with emotional relapse. You're not thinking about using, but your behaviors are setting you up. Isolating yourself, bottling up your feelings. Next comes mental relapse. The internal battle really begins. You start daydreaming about past use, romanticizing how it felt. Then physical relapse, the slip or full return to use. What follows is often continued use, driven by the chemical hook and the thought, "What's the point? I've already blown it." The downward spiral accelerates. Final stage, aftermath. Guilt, shame, hopelessness. Guilt becomes the trigger that pushes you back to the start. It's a vicious loop. Breaking it requires stepping out at one of these stages. Section 3. The truth about triggers, the starting point of relapse. Let's talk about triggers. A trigger is anything. A person. A trigger is anything. A place. A trigger is anything. A thing. A trigger is anything. A feeling. A trigger is anything. A memory. That sets off a craving to use. Think of it as the spark that lights the fuse on the bomb of relapse. If you don't know what your specific sparks are, you're essentially walking through a minefield blindfolded. A major category of triggers is environmental, people you used with, places where you bought or used drugs or alcohol. Just driving down a particular street can unleash a powerful, conditioned response in your brain, screaming at you to use. Another huge category of triggers is emotional: stress, anxiety, anger, sadness, loneliness, boredom. These feelings can feel so overwhelming that your brain defaults to its old familiar coping mechanism, the substance. You have to become a detective in your own life. When you feel a craving, stop and ask yourself, what just happened? Write it down. Keep a log. Once you have identified a trigger, you have power over it. Knowledge is power, and in this case, it's the power to protect your sobriety. Section 4. Why does it keep happening? The real reasons for relapse. So why do people keep getting caught in this cycle? One of the biggest reasons is that addiction fundamentally changes your brain's reward system. Substances like drugs and alcohol flood the brain with dopamine, the feel-good chemical, at levels that natural rewards like food or relationships can't compete with. Your brain then rewires itself, prioritizing the substance above all else. Even after you quit, these rewired pathways remain. It takes a long time and a lot of work for the brain to heal and for natural rewards to feel rewarding again. Another powerful reason is the simple, brute force of habit. Your addiction wasn't just a chemical dependency, it was a deeply ingrained set of rituals and routines that consumed your daily life. When you get sober, you're left with a huge void. All that time and energy you spent on your addiction now has nowhere to go. If you don't actively and intentionally create new, healthy routines to fill that void, your brain's default setting will be to revert to the old, familiar, and destructive ones. Let's also be brutally honest about your environment. You cannot expect to get well in the same environment that made you sick. It's like a diabetic trying to recover while living in a candy store. Finally, a huge driver of relapse is a lack of a solid support system that's called white-knuckling it, and it rarely works long-term. Recovery is an active, ongoing process. Relapse happens when the stress of life becomes greater than your ability to cope with it in a healthy way. Building that coping ability is the core work of recovery. Okay, so it happened. You had a slip. You relapsed. The first thing that hits you, often harder than any hangover, is a tidal wave of guilt and shame. You feel like you've betrayed yourself. Your inner critic goes into overdrive. It screams that you're a failure. Understand that this shame is a liar. It's a destructive emotion that thrives in secrecy and darkness. Its only goal is to keep you stuck. This is where you have a choice. Or you can take a deep breath and do the hardest thing, challenge it. The antidote to shame is honesty. The antidote to shame is connection. The moment you voice what happened to someone you trust, a sponsor, a therapist, a supportive family member, you rob that shame of its power. Bringing it into the light makes it shrink. So instead of beating yourself up, practice self-compassion. Talk to yourself like a friend you care about deeply who just made a mistake. Extend that same grace to yourself. Acknowledge the mistake. Feel the disappointment, but do not allow it to define you or your future. When you're in the pit of a relapse, it feels impossible to climb out. But I'm telling you, there is a way out. It starts with one simple, immediate action. As soon as you are able, you need to interrupt the pattern. The longer you continue to use, the harder it will be to stop. The very first step is to reach out for help. Do not wait. Do not tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. Pick up the phone and call your sponsor. Call your therapist. Call a trusted friend. Call a recovery hotline. Say the words out loud. I relapsed and I need help. Once you have reached out, the next critical step is to analyze what happened. You need to do a relapse autopsy. Get a piece of paper and write down the play-by-play. What was the trigger? What was the stinking thinking that led up to it? Were you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Halt. After you've analyzed the why, you need to immediately re-engage with your recovery program. This is non-negotiable. If you were going to meetings, go to a meeting today. If you were working with a therapist, schedule an emergency session. Your addicted brain will tell you that you're too ashamed to show your face, that people will judge you. That is a lie. The recovery community understands relapse better than anyone. Walking back into that room is an act of strength, not weakness. It sends a powerful message to yourself and to your disease that you are not giving up on your life. A relapse doesn't mean your recovery is over. It means your recovery is ready for an upgrade. If you want to stay sober for the long haul, you have to do more than just not use. You have to build a life that is so rich and fulfilling that you don't want to escape from it. Recovery isn't about taking things away, it's about adding things in. It's about building a life that is genuinely better than the one you had when you were using. This starts with getting brutally honest about what needs to change. This means taking a hard look at your career, your relationships, your hobbies, your daily habits. A cornerstone of a relapse-proof life is a solid routine. When you were in active addiction, your life revolved around the routine of using. Now you need to replace that with a positive, structured routine that supports your well-being. Your daily routine should include non-negotiable pillars of recovery: consistent sleep, healthy nutrition, regular exercise time for quiet reflection or meditation. These aren't just nice suggestions. They are essential maintenance for your brain and body, making you physically and emotionally more resilient to cravings and stress. You also have to find your people. I'm talking about a tribe of sober, supportive individuals who get it. Finally, you must find a purpose. A huge part of building a new life is discovering or rediscovering what makes you feel passionate and alive. This could be anything from volunteering, going back to school, starting a new hobby, focusing on your family. Purpose provides a why for staying sober. It's the North Star that guides you through the tough times and reminds you of the beautiful life you are building for yourself. Staying sober long-term is not a passive activity. It requires active, daily engagement. One of the most powerful strategies is to have an emergency relapse prevention plan written down and ready to go. This is your in case of fire break glass plan. It should be a simple step-by-step list of what to do the moment you feel a strong craving or find yourself in a high-risk situation. Another crucial strategy is the daily practice of self-care. This is not about selfish indulgence. It's about strategic self-preservation. If you constantly run on empty, you will have no reserves to fight back when a trigger appears. Consistent self-care is what keeps your tank full. You have to learn to play the tape all the way through. Your addicted brain is a master of deception. It will try to sell you on the memory of the first 20 minutes of euphoria and conveniently forget the hours and days of misery that followed. By forcing yourself to remember the full, painful reality of your using, you take the power away from the romanticized fantasy. Finally, embrace the journey, not just the destination. There is no cure for addiction where you one day wake up and are magically fixed forever. Celebrate your milestones, whether it's 24 hours or 24 years. If you are struggling with addiction, if you have relapsed once or 100 times, hear me loud and clear. There is hope. Your past does not have to be your future. The story is not over. You are not defined by your disease or by your mistakes. You are defined by what you do right now in this moment. The struggle you are enduring today is forging a strength you never knew you had. You have a power within you greater than any substance. This power, your resilience, your capacity to love, your deep desire for a better life. Addiction may have hijacked your brain, but it has not destroyed your spirit. A beautiful, sober life is not just possible, it is waiting for you. You are taking the pen back into your own hand. Make the concrete choice over and over to fight for the life you deserve. You can do this. You can break free. You can write a new, magnificent ending. Now get to it.